Are you looking for a great story? Do you love Star Wars? Do you like podcasts?
If you said yes to any of these, check out the Redemption Podcast.
Well, I have less in my head than you do normally, probably.
You haven't met the crew I'm with. Pretty much everywhere we go, our life is in danger.
Things didn't explode. That's pretty sneaky for us.
That sounds horrible.
Yes, please finish up whatever underhanded thing you're doing on the computer terminals at the Jedi Temple.
Check out Redemption Podcast at www.redemptionpodcast.com.
This is Tabletop Babble. I'm James Introcaso. Today on the show, we are chatting with Russ Morrissey of EnWorld about a whole bunch of awesome things. He's got a Kickstarter going right now for a full collection of some famous creatures that have been converted into 5e stats. He's also got a new game system called the Awfully Cheerful system we're going to talk about. And it is just a lot of fun catching up with my friend Russ. So here is my conversation with him. Okay, everybody, now I'm here with one of my favorite people in role-playing games. Russ, how are you? For people who don't know, who are you and what do you do in the world of tabletop role-playing games?
Well, most importantly, I'm one of your favorite people in role-playing games. You flatterer. So I'm Russ, or most people probably know me by the name Morrus, and I run a RPG news website called EnWorld. And I'm also I also run a tabletop gaming publishing company called EN Publishing. And we've done things like we did the masterclass Codex last year. We published the official Judge Dredd RPG. We've been around for about 18 years now. Long time. Not that I'm old or anything, but you know.
No, it's huge, right? EnWorld is a great place to go get news. I'm on there every day, and then you've also put out a lot of content through EN Publishing. You know, you've got Insider, right, and Trailblazer,
which you've written for, I believe. I remember. Was it a diseases article, wasn't it?
Yes.
3 or 4 years ago? Yeah, I remember that.
A disease article, an article about chases. Those were the...
Yes.
Yeah. Those are the first two things I was ever paid to write in role-playing games. So thank you.
I am singularly honored.
I am singularly honored. And I love those...
We are both singularly honored.
Yeah, we've had Mike Myler on a couple times and Joey Hake when he was the editor for Insider to talk about those, because I think those are great places, and it's one of the only places where you write and you eventually get your rights back to your work, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, we always think of it as a really good, I mean, you just said it yourself, a good first step into the industry. So what we do, we accept pitches, but when someone writes for us, or the artist as well, we basically buy a license off them. The contract's basically a license for 1 year. So we get to, publish it and make some money off it for a year. But after that, they can do whatever they like with it. Anything they want. They can publish it themselves. They can put it in a book. They can, it's theirs. They've got the copyright. We never own the copyright at any point.
That's very cool. That's very, very cool. I love that. And it's a great magazine. You get tons of content for a very low price. Yeah.
Well, basically whatever price you want, isn't it? It's a Patreon, so you just choose whatever you think it's worth. That's what you pay.
Yeah. So it's awesome. I love the work that you're doing and everything that you do out there with the EnWorld. And right now you have a Kickstarter, mythological figures and maleficent monsters for D&D 5e. So tell me a little bit about this. What are these products that you're putting out?
All right, so you've heard of a Greek chap called Achilles?
I've heard of him. Yes.
A guy called Lancelot, Robin Hood,
yes.
Thor, Rasputin, Blackbeard, Dracula. Mm-hmm. We've even got Lucifer in there.
Wow!
In a post post CR30 is 35, I think, stat block.
Wow.
Yeah, we've even got Lucifer. So basically, it's a collection. It's a monster manual in a way, but it's a collection of mythological figures and monsters, just from all of Earth's like massive, wide variety of myths and legends, and also history as well. So we've got Miyamoto Musashi in there as well, because he's just an example of an amazing swordsman. So you want the best swordsman, you put him in there. We've got Robin Hood because he's an amazing archer. So it's a great big sweeping sort of eclectic look at the whole sort of mythology of the entire world.
Yeah, like everything from Cthulhu to Grendel to George Washington.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Mike Myler put George Washington in there. He's an American like you, so Jesus,
That's right. That's
so
right.
I had very little to do with that particular entry, but I'm sure it's excellent.
I mean, it's very cool, and I am from the great state of New Jersey. You have your table of contents posted here on your Kickstarter. I noticed the Jersey Devil gets an entry.
Yes, because I didn't actually realize this until like Mike started introducing them to me. But there's a lot more sort of American folklore than I thought was there. Being from the UK, I'm not so familiar with it. I'm familiar more with the sort of British kind of folklore and legends and stuff, and there's some really the Jersey Devil and all that sort of stuff. And what's the giant lumberjack? Paul Bunyan.
Oh, Paul Bunyan. Yeah, John Henry is in here.
We've got John Henry in there, and all that's really, really fascinating stuff. So we've got a good sprinkling of American folklore in there. Half a dozen really, really, really interesting American-inspired headless horsemen. I think. I don't know if America can claim it as originally, but I think it was made famous by The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, wasn't it? That's probably where people know it from.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, we did a fair job building up our own mythological figures and things very quickly over here in the States. Usually by stealing from you and renaming things. That's sort of the United States way of doing everything these days. So, but yeah, this is really cool. Where did the idea for this book come from? Because I also want to call out, right, that not only do you have mythological figures in this book, you also have a fair number of companions and like items that go along with things. Like, for instance, how could you do Arthur without Excalibur? Right.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Yeah. You've also got a lot of cool items like that. So how did this all come about?
Yeah. So we've got about 30. I think it's 30 items. So we've got Excalibur, like you said. We've got Mjolnir. We got Daedalus in there, who created the wings of Icarus. The ones that melted when you got too close to the sun. And Dorian Gray's life-catching portrait. So yeah, we've got a whole lot of that stuff in there. It all comes from Mike Myler's column. So about 2 or 3 years ago, I approached Mike and I said, look, I'd really like a weekly column on my site. And I'd like it to... Originally, it was supposed to be sort of like epic stat blocks. They're all going to be really, really big critters to really challenge. Because at the time, there wasn't an awful lot of that out for D&D. There's a bit more now, but at the time there wasn't really anything out there. So we started doing that, but we started drifting a little bit, and we started just delving into history. So some of these are down as low as CR4, or I think there's some even lower than that. Don Quixote 1 to CR1, I
think. That's so great.
Yeah. So and it just started ranging across the world, and he started taking requests. After he'd done about 6 of them, and so all of the entries in here are basically things that readers of Mike's column requested specifically. So if you ask why have you got this guy in there and not this guy, it's because that's who the readers asked for. But and it just took off, and it's been going for like 3 years, I think now, maybe 2 or 3 years.
Wow. It's just such a fun thing to have, but there's a lot of lore and research and care that seems to have gone into these creatures.
Yeah, so each entry has got a sort of historical stroke mythological description, obviously, like any monster's going to have. But with these, you run into the issue that you are dealing with cultures from across the world. And I'm this white guy in England. Mike is a white guy in America. So we couldn't do that all on our own.
Right.
So what we've done is we hired some, consultancy experts who helped us with because we've got some people from China, and we've got Japanese figures, and we've got Mesoamerican figures and Polynesian and stuff like that. So we've made sure that we, every single thing that basically wasn't us got double checked by people, with a connection to the relevant culture.
Oh, wow. That's great.
And I think that's important to do.
Yeah. Yeah. You see more about cultural consultants and sensitivity readers these days. It's becoming more and more part of the zeitgeist. And I know I'm trying to work with more people, especially when you have a project like this that's covering a lot of different cultures or a culture that you're not from, right?
And to be honest, that makes your product better. It doesn't. I mean, you do see some people on the internet complaining about it, and I'm just thinking, but surely the input of these people makes the thing better.
Yes.
I mean, don't you end up with a better book because of it? It's so much better. This book was improved by the inclusion of those people. Yeah.
100%. So I've worked with Daniel Kwan, who's really great, and
we used him. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's wonderful. He's wonderful. Leona Maple is also great, and even with working with them, it's almost like in addition to someone who is looking at your lore and calling out things that are problematic, you also get an extra kind of development editor, because they're also able to say, hey, what about this really cool thing that you missed, right? And you're like, oh, yes, I do want that cool thing in there. It is. I really do feel strongly that it does. It makes all work better.
Yeah. I'm so pleased we worked with these people, and a special shout out to Salt and Sage Books. So they're a company that has a whole range of consultancy readers and consultancy experts and stuff that from a whole load of different backgrounds. So you hire them, and they find the right person for you.
Oh, that's great. The Salt and Sage Books.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very, very cool. So this is really exciting. So in addition to giving the stats for each of these creatures within the lore, it looks like there are not just, hey, here's the history of the character, but here are ways that you might find yourself going on an adventure and encountering this person, right? Ways to see like how they act and what they do in the world.
Yeah, so we haven't done that so much in this one. We've got some design notes on the pages, and those design notes kind of they're more the theory and the maths behind it, and how we came to the stats, or how because sometimes you find you have to, because you're using D&D rules to try and represent a mythological figure, which, when that figure was written, nobody had ever heard of D&D, and it doesn't necessarily fit neatly into those boxes or have abilities that neatly fit into those boxes. So the design notes kind of discuss how we approach those things and how we manage to get those. Because you might sometimes think, why has he got a level of barbarian? It's like just to access a specific ability or something.
And I know Mike Myler, who did a lot of this, he is known for looking at historical and fictional creatures. He does this a lot on his blog with, like even Muppets, right? I've seen him do it with video game characters and television characters, where obviously he's got to give it away for free because those are intellectual property owned by somebody else. But this book, the fact that I will be able to open up a book and slap down Dracula or Achilles or Cleopatra or Lucifer himself, which I think is really. I'm not sure anyone's going to fight Lucifer, but he's fun to read. CR 35. 35.
So we got three. We got three that are 30. I think it's three. So we've got Cthulhu. We've got Fenrir. The giant wolf. just because we wanted to say, sit down, Tarask, take a seat. Here comes Fenrir. Ragnarok this. and then we got Lucifer as well.
Wow.
Because this nifty ability in that Lucifer, he's CR35, so basically he's a higher CR than anything else in the game.
Right.
And he has an ability that he can take the form and the stats of anything with a CR that's lower than his. So basically anything he wants.
Right. Wow. That's just such a cool idea and a cool concept. And I know you're saying you don't think people will fight Lucifer, but I guarantee
you give them hit points.
Somebody's going to get this book.
No, you're right. They will.
So you and I were talking earlier, and you showed me you already have a copy of this thing in your hands. It's massive. First of all, we should say that it is a beautiful, beautiful, massive tome.
D4 bludgeoning damage, I think, was this thing.
D4 bludgeoning damage. So it's safe to say that this Kickstarter is almost ready to go, ready to be fulfilled.
Yeah. So what we do, and we've been doing this for several years now, is when we run a Kickstarter, I refuse to launch the Kickstarter till I am physically holding the object in my hands. And I know it's ready to go. So, I mean, obviously, we haven't done a print one. I haven't got 1,000 of them. But I've got one. It's done. The book's written. The art's done. The editing's done. Everything's done. It's ready to print. So basically, what we're funding is the physical manufacture of that book. But the actual book has been written and completed. And as soon as the Kickstarter ends, print order, shipping straight away. And we've been doing that for years now. And it really, really works for us.
To be able to say, hey, this is ready to go, I have a copy of the book in front of me.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of a rep that we've been kind of cultivating for a few years. So each term Kickstarter ends, the digital side of it, I literally send out the rewards like in under a minute. Like straight away. Like it ends, I'm sitting there watching the countdown timer. And basically, it's just, unfortunately, Kickstarter doesn't let you actually line these up ready beforehand. So you have to wait for it to end and then type furiously. But yeah, it ends, and then I'm sending them straight out. And this will usually be about midnight my time. So I'm waiting up until midnight, waiting for the Kickstarter to end, which will be about 5 p.m. your time or something. And then I'm sending those digital rewards out immediately. And then the physical ones, as just how long it takes to print and ship, just weeks at most.
That's really, really cool. That's great. So you can also get the Masterclass Codex, right? With this, which is a book that you've already put out. So what is the Masterclass Codex?
So we had a Kickstarter for that last year. So if people missed it last year, this is a good chance to grab it at the same time as mythological figures. So it's a hardcover book, and it contains 16 new classes for D&D. And all of these originally appeared in the pages of Insider, so they've all been play tested and revised and play tested and all that stuff. So they're all, nicely balanced. And 16 new classes, which is a lot of classes.
It is. It's a ton of classes. It's a ton.
It's a ton. It's a big old ton of classes. We've got an alchemist there. We got a Fey Walker, a Tinkerer, which is kind of an inventor, gunfighter, a whole bunch, occultist, a noble, which is our warlord type. So but we got 16 of them there, and they're all full classes with subclasses, and also occasionally with additional items and bits and pieces and spells and stuff that goes with them as well.
Yeah, it's a great book, and people should check that out if you want more class options. I have it on my shelf, and I think it's great. And there's also fun mechanics in there that I feel like I haven't really seen in D&D before.
Well, the card caster is fun because that uses a deck of cards to cast your spells with.
Exactly.
It's fun. That I like that. We also have you can use just a regular deck of cards, but we also have a special sort of custom kind of tarot style cardcaster deck, which you can buy separately, just if you want to add a little bit of extra fun.
Yeah, that's great. I love that cardcaster. It's such a cool idea to bring in this new mechanic and layer cards on top of D&D. I think is really fun. Hey, everybody, just wanted to take a quick break to let you know that I wrote an original role-playing game. I worked on it with an awesome team. You may have heard us talk about it on this podcast before. It's called Burn Bright. That's Bryte. Burn Bright. It is a science fantasy game that was built for the Roll20 platform from the ground up. We are taking pre-orders right now, and on July 7th, that's Tuesday, the week this podcast launches, it will be out. You can buy the core rules. You can buy a starter adventure with pre-gens. You can check out all of the options over at burnbright.com. That's burn and then BRYTE.com. It is a really fun system that I have poured my heart and soul and more than 3 years of work into. So please, please, please go check it out. Burnbright, BRYTE.com. Let's also talk about the awfully cheerful system for a minute here. So we talked about this on your podcast, and I had seen it on Twitter before that. Awfully cheerful. For people who don't know, what is this cool role-playing game system that you've come up with?
So when you came on our podcast, it was an idea that had some text, but it wasn't really a fully written game. It wasn't really a fully written system. It was a concept more than anything else that I was working on. That was 3 weeks ago, I think. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. It's not long ago. It's pretty much done now. So the Awfully Cheerful system is a light action comedy game, and it's. I don't know if you're not old enough to remember this, but the Ghostbusters RPG from the 80s.
Yes.
The very first ever dice pool game, in fact, that was. And it was such a fun game. It was a light, fast action comedy game. The whole thing was written in this really casual, kind of chatty, vaguely surreal, slightly irreverent tone. You know how some RPGs read a bit like a textbook? They're quite formal. This wasn't. This was like some guy just chatting to you in a casual conversational tone. Mm-hmm. It was like Peter Venkman was talking to you almost.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that role-playing game.
And so that was the inspiration. And originally, that's kind of what I planned to do. And then it just expanded from there. So it ended up being a sort of generic action comedy game where you could play Ghostbusters, you could play Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or you could play Danger Mouse or Talking Animals or anything that's sort of action comedy that you wouldn't take too seriously. Because the idea is you've got to have a laugh while you're doing it. It's important that you laugh while you play that
game. That's great. I love that. I love a good action comedy game. So is it a dice pool game like Ghostbusters?
Yeah. It's very, very similar in concept from there, but it goes on a little bit beyond there, but very similar to that. So it's a really short game. It's like 30 pages, and those pages are comic book sized rather than full size, because the format we want to sell this in is the size of a weekly comic book. So, a really small, cheap thing, and the whole thing's designed around one-shots. So you're not going to play a campaign with it, but one night you're going to go, let's play this adventure, which is, talking animals trying to take down an island of ninjas. And then you'll play that. And then the next week you'll say, let's play this one. It's kind of like Ghostbusters. And each time you play it, you're going to be playing a different adventure, different setting, different characters. And each adventure would also be like a comic book size thing too.
That's great. That's really cool. So you might have a stack of these eventually that you can say, let's do this one where we're, it's like Men in Black, right? Or that
yeah, kind of exactly. Yeah. So we want to do a sort of parody D&D one, a bit Pratchett-y. So a bit Ankh-Morpork, bit quite funny. And then we want to do a parody Star Trek-y one as well, where you really, really joke at all the tropes and all the things there are to laugh with at Star Trek.
Right. That's great. So how did you come up with this? Like where did you find the time in getting ready to launch a Kickstarter and running EnWorld and doing everything else that you do, your podcast, to do this?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to say I'm a workaholic, but it's not even work; it's play because I enjoy it so much. So I know I'm just a natural tinkerer. I love making systems. I'm not so much so fond of writing prose and lore, but I love writing systems. I really enjoy that. I love playing with the numbers. I like playing with probabilities and different dice mechanics, and drawing tables and filling in numbers. I'm like a RPG accountant or something. I don't know. So I just constantly tinker all the time, even when I'm not working. I'm still working on something in my head. I just can't help it. It's just what I do.
Right. Yeah. Well, and you like you said, you've got a lot of titles under the EnWorld publishing, under EN Publishing, right? You've got Judge Dredd, and then you've also got the old now new system, right?
Yeah. What's old is new. Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that, because I think that's a really intriguing system that allows you to kind of mishmash a lot of genres.
Yeah, so that's 3 separate core rule books, and each one of them is standalone, so you don't need all 3. But if you do have all 3, you can mix the 3 together as much as you want, because they're all 100% compatible. So one of them is medieval fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons, Tolkien, that stuff. One of them is sort of modern action, kind of 80s action, James Bondy, all those TV shows like The A-Team and Knight Rider and Talking Cars and Super Spies and Ninjas and all that stuff. And then the last one is sci-fi, so it's Star Wars and Star Trek and Babylon 5 and Battlestar Galactica and all that. But the thing is, because they all use the exact same system, you can literally pick up a wizard, stick him on your starship, then fly to modern-day New York and have a fight with a mech in the middle of Central Park, or you could do whatever you want because they're all fully compatible.
That's awesome. That's really fun, right? And so you can end up with these situations where a medieval knight is hanging out with a super spy, right? And someone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And of course, you don't have to do that. If that's a bit gonzo doing all that stuff. But what you can do is just take one of those games and just play a really, really solid fantasy game or a really solid, Star Trek-y or Star Wars-y style game. And you don't have to bring things in from different time periods. That's just an option that you can do.
The fact that you said like you're a tinkerer, you can't help it, right? Like you're always, even in your head, coming up with new systems and tinkering with existing systems and things like that. Do you have a dream project that you haven't gotten to work on yet, or that you are working on that you are excited to see? Maybe you can't talk about it if you do.
Well, sort of, license wise, yeah. I mean, yeah, but someone else has it. Star Trek is the one.
Sure.
But the thing is, what I don't want to write an adventure for Star Trek. That's not what I want to do. I want to manage the role playing game line for Star Trek, which I can't do because someone else has that license. But I would have loved to have gotten that one, especially if I focused it on more sort of original series era. The old faster Star Trek RPG focused on. Gotcha. Because I loved that game to death, and that was again quite a few years ago, but big influence on me, that game.
Gotcha.
So yeah, Star Trek I think would be the one.
Star Trek, that's good. And I one assumes then you're a big fan of the TV series and all of its various incarnations.
Yeah. I'm a Trekkie. I am definitely a Trekkie.
Yeah.
I can quote Wrath of Khan from Star Trek. No, I can't. Well, maybe I can. I don't know. I could try.
All right, let's ready go. No.
You have 2 hours. Excellent.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's great. That's really fun. So the other side of what you do, right? The sort of the news side, I think it's safe to say that EnWorld has grown into a news organization almost, right? You have other people who do columns and interviews and things like that, as well as you doing a lot of that work and that kind of thing. What is the kind of daily operation of that like, and how do you get RPG news? Like, how do you get the news that you bring to us?
Basically, it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job. So half the time I'm doing this at 3 a.m. because time zones don't help me in this regard. I'm here in the UK. Most of the big news tends to come out of Seattle, which is as far west as you can go without going to Hawaii. You can't go any further west than Seattle. So that's about that far time zone wise as it's physically possible to go in the world from where I am. So there's a 9 hour, I think 8 or 9 hour difference there. And because of that, I tend to find that a lot of my news is being done late at night, early in the morning, which is fine. I'm a night owl anyway. So that's, that works. I'm rubbish in the mornings anyway. But yeah, I just keep my eyes open. I get a lot of people email me news, a lot of people tag me in on Twitter and stuff. I get a lot of emails from people saying, hey, have you seen this? Have you heard that? I'm on a whole load of mailing lists for press releases and all that stuff. And obviously I keep my eye open on the big companies like Wizards and Paizo and Modifius. And, I just check their sites every day, make sure there's nothing I've missed. I mean, there's a lot. It's impossible to do it all because there's so many RPG companies out there now, especially with Kickstarter and DM's Guild and Drive Through RPG. It's such a big, wide array of it. You can only ever hope to dip your toe in at any time anyway. But you try and get the big ones.
That is definitely true. Right? You can only hope to do so much and really get a lot done because there's no, I always say to people, like, there's no way we can even play them all. There's so many role-playing games now that I just with the ones that I know of, I could probably play a new game, every day for the next 10 years.
Yeah. And they'd still be coming out because they come out more than one a day. So it would still, that target would still be receding ahead of you, faster than you can catch up with it. There's so many of them. But that's an amazing thing, don't you think? That's just, like we're definitely in a golden age for this industry. Like D&D is bigger than it's ever been. Everything else is also bigger than it's ever been. Kickstarter's been a massive, massive boon to the industry, allowing games to exist that never, ever would have existed before. And such a big, wide variety of games from all different types of creators from all across the world. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think about that all the time, right? That like Matt Colville started MCDM because his first Kickstarter was so successful, right? And now we have this extra full-time RPG company in the world that we wouldn't have if it wasn't for something like Kickstarter, So yeah, we definitely are in a kind of cool golden age of making stuff, and I hope it continues. And I hope, obviously D&D is bringing more and more people to the hobby, and I think what's happening is, those people play D&D for a while, and then they realize, oh wait, I could go play it. Like I could go be a superhero over here, or a super spy, or an alien, or whatever it is, and they go out that way. So
there's this funny thing that I think some smaller companies kind of resent D&D a little bit, and I don't quite get that because I think, and I think it was Jonathan Tweet who said, and he was one of the designers of third edition, but he's also done a bunch of other stuff before that and after that, like Magicka and stuff like that. And he said, what you got to think about it like this. All these amazing people that Wizards of the Coast is bringing into the hobby and who are all playing D&D, they're your potential future customers, which D&D is doing the hard work of bringing into the hobby for you. And that's something that a small company can't do. You don't have the reach and the power and the ability to really bring people into the hobby in large numbers. But the market leaders like Wizards and Paizo, especially Wizards, they can do that, and we all benefit from it. Everybody benefits.
Yeah, I agree. So it'll be good to see kind of where things go. We're entering unprecedented times with the number of people who are getting into the hobby and talking about it. And I never thought I'd see the day where people are fighting over $300 dice and all kinds of stuff. Does part of you wish you had gotten into making dice instead of making the games? I think that sometimes when I see dice Kickstarters, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, but it wouldn't thrill me.
Yeah, me too. And I think the people who make dice, it really does thrill them to do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could probably make more money making, I don't know, tea towels or something and marketing them to supermarkets, but I wouldn't get anything out of that. Yeah, it's got to speak to you, hasn't it? It has to be. I think those of us that are in this industry and the ones that have managed to actually make a career out of it are so lucky,
right?
Because not everybody gets to work on what they love and still love it.
I agree. We are very lucky, and it's very awesome. So.
Yeah. I mean, I wake up every day and I think, oh, what have I got to do today? I've got to go to work. What does that mean? Oh, I'm going to write about some giant mechs today. Oh, dear. Woe is me. That's terrible.
Right. Yeah. That is a great point. So if people want to check out your Kickstarter, where should they go? What should they do?
Right. So the Kickstarter is called Mythological Figures and Maleficent Monsters. So the quickest way, of course, is just to quickly Google that, and with a bit of luck, the Kickstarter will be up there at the top. But you could also go to enworld.org/myths, which is just a short, quick way to get there. And I've put a sort of landing page there, which will direct people onto the Kickstarter so they can find it.
So, and where can people find you on the internet, Russ?
You can find me mainly at EnWorld, ENWORLD.org, which is my RPG news website and forum and community and other stuff. Or you can find me on Twitter, which is at Morrus, MORRUS, where I talk utter nonsense. No, I mainly just post RPG news scoops, to be honest.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining me today. This sounds really cool, and I can't wait to check it out.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this all week, so I've really enjoyed it.
That was a great interview with Russ. People, you can help out the show by heading on over to patreon.com/Intricasso and by heading on over to Apple Podcasts and leaving us a 5-star review. By the way, my original science fantasy role-playing game Burn Bright, BRYTE, is out tomorrow when this podcast launches. Not now, almost now. That's BRYTE for Bright. You can check it out at burnbright.com. It's an exclusive game for Roll20 science fantasy built from the ground up. It is a lot of fun. Check out episode 99 of this podcast 2 years ago when we announced that we were working on it. Oh man, it's been a while, and I am excited for everybody to get it in their hot little hands. Thank you so much for listening. You can find me on Twitter at James Intricasso and at worldbuilderblog.com. Tabletop Babble is a show on the Don't Split the Podcast Network. Thanks to Rudy Basso for founding it with me. This episode was edited by Nate Pauzenga. Our theme music, which you're listening to right now, was provided by Battle Bards. Thanks for listening.
I'm Lisa Chen, and I host Behold Her, a monthly podcast that shines a spotlight on women in the world of tabletop games. There are so many women to behold in this amazing hobby, and our experiences as female gamers are as diverse as we are as individuals. Through one-on-one interviews, audio essays, and panel discussions, all centered around a monthly theme, the guests on Behold Her share their unique stories as players, game masters, designers, artists, organizers, and so much more. Their words are inspiring, uplifting, and informative. Check out Behold Her Podcast wherever podcasts are found, or visit beholdherpodcast.com.